Hello guys, today we're covering 6.4 negative exponents. Okay, so negative exponents can be written using positive exponents using the negative exponent rule. Well, we need to kind of understand why that rule happens, okay? When it's a negative exponent, it tells us how many times to divide by. When we usually have exponents, it's multiplying by. But when it's a negative exponent, it's how many times to divide by the base. And this is why, which is shown by making it a fraction. So let me show you what that looks like. So for instance, this one here where it says x to the negative a. To make it be a positive exponent, let me skip this over so you can see that. We put it in the denominator, so it becomes 1 over x to the a. This is what the answer looks like, okay? You want to remember that the division is shown by the fraction because the fraction bar is the same as equal to the division bar. They are one and the same, okay? So when it's a negative exponent, it's how many times you're dividing by the base, which is why it moves to the denominator, which is shown by it being in a fraction. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples. Okay, here we go for the examples. So we're going to start with number 2. And what we're going to notice is only m is raised to the negative 2. So that is the only thing that is going to move to the bottom or to the denominator. The 3 is going to stay in the numerator spot. So this is going to become 3 over m squared. And there is my final answer. Okay. Let's look at the next example. Number 4. Now, when it says the directions here, it says to simplify each expression. You want to make sure final answers contain only positive exponents. You want to use the rules first, then move. So first the rules, then move the variables. So this is the first, this is the second. Okay, all right, here we go. So for number 4, the rule is when they're multiplying, it's the same base. That means I add the exponents. So this is going to become w to the 7 plus negative 9, which gives me w to the negative 2. And then I move it to the denominator because it's a negative exponent, which means it's going to go under 1. So I'm going to have 1 over w squared. When I move it to the bottom, it becomes a positive exponent. And here is my answer. Okay, let's go through some examples because that's going to be the best way to kind of learn this stuff and understand it. Okay, so remember, we use our rules first. So that means I'm doing 4 times 5, which is going to give me 20. And then I have a c to the 8, and it's times c to the negative 5. So it's plus negative 5. And then we have d to the negative 3 plus negative 1. So that's going to give me 20c to the 3rd, d to the negative 4. Since only the d is the negative 4, this is the only factor that is going to move to the denominator. So it's going to be 20c to the 3rd over d to the 4th as the final answer. All right, moving right along. Remember, you can pause, repeat, you can listen to it however many times that you need to. We're going to jump down to number 10. Okay, this is a power raised to a power. This means we end up with 3 to the negative 4. R to the negative 4. S, remember it's a power raised to a power, so I'll multiply. So that's a negative 3 times a negative 4, so that becomes a positive 12. Okay, since the 3 is raised to the negative 4, that means this is going to become 1 over 3 to the 4th. The R is raised to the negative 4. So that means it's going to be moved to the bottom. So I'm going to have R to the 4th at the bottom. The S is positive, so therefore it stays at the top and is going to be S to the 12th. Now we're not finished because I have to actually calculate this 3 to the 4th, which is 81, because 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 9 is 81. So we have S to the 12th. We don't write the 1. S to the 12th over 81 R to the 4th. This is the final answer. Okay. Next example, number 15. This is where we're pulling in the quotient rule. Okay. So we have to do our division. So we have negative 10 divided by 2, which is negative 5. And then when it's a quotient rule, we subtract our exponents. So we have m to the 2 minus 3. N to the, oh, remember that's a 1 that's understood to be there, to the 1 minus negative 5, which means if that's a double negative, this becomes a big plus. So now I'm going to have negative 5 m to the negative 1 n to the 6th. Well, the only thing that has a negative exponent is the m, so it's moving down. So my final answer is negative 5 n to the 6th over m. And now on to the next page. That did not stay for very long. Sorry about that. Okay. As we get more complicated, I'm trying to work several of those so that you can see how all of this goes together. Okay, so next example is number 17. So the first thing I do when I'm looking at this is, okay, I've got to follow my quotient rules. 15 cannot be divided by 18, but I can simplify by dividing by 3 to both. So that's going to give me 5/6. And then, because it's a quotient rule, I have a squared divided, oh, that's a squared over a squared. That completely cancels out and becomes a 1. That's no longer there. So I no longer have a's to deal with. So I have b to the 5 minus 3, which is b squared. And then c to the 8 minus 9, so that's c to the negative 1. Since this is a negative exponent, it's only the c raised to the negative. This is going to move down to the bottom with the 6. So I'm going to have 5b squared over 6c. And this is my final answer. Again, pause and re-listen if you have any questions. Okay, number 20. Okay, so now we've got the power to a power, and then we're adding in addition here. Okay, so I'm going to have 4 to the negative 2. So that's going to give me 4 to the negative 2. Then I'm going to have x to the negative 6, y to the negative 12, plus 2 to the negative 3, x to the negative 6, y to the negative 12. Okay, well, that means these have the same exponent scenario. They're just negative, so I can just combine these once I figure out what these simplify to. Okay, so 4, that's going to be 1 over 16, because that's 4 squared. X to the negative 6, y to the negative 12, plus this is 1 over 2 to the 3rd, which is 8, x to the 6th, y to the 12th. Now, I'm going to change colors for this purpose so that we can see. I have to have a common denominator to combine these. Oh, this is supposed to be negative 6 and negative 12 as my exponents. Do not make that mistake and forget your signs. It makes a big difference as you're simplifying. Okay, well, I need a common denominator, so I'm going to change this to 16, which means this is going to change to a 2, which means I have 1 plus 2, so that's going to give me 3/16 x to the negative 6, y to the negative 12. Well, now, because both of these are negative, they are both moving to the denominator. So I'm going to end up with 3 over 16 x to the 6th, y to the 12th. This is the final answer. Okay, couple of more questions. 24. Too far. Okay. So it's a power raised to a power and the quotient rule. So we've got negative 6 squared. So that's going to give me a positive 36. X, power raised to a power. So that's going to be x to the 8th, y to the 12th, all over negative 4 to the 3rd power. Well, that's negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. So that's going to be 16 times negative 4, which gives me a negative 64. I broke this out so you realize that this is supposed to be a negative. So we have a negative 64, x to the negative 9th, y to the 15th. Okay, so now we simplify and we use our quotient rule. So 36 and 64 are both divisible by 4. So this is going to become 9 over, hold up, 9 over 64 divided by 4. Well, I just saw that. So this is going to be 16. But that's a negative. And then we have 8 minus negative 9. So that becomes 8 plus 9. So we have x to the 17th. And then we have y to the 12 minus 15. So that's going to give me y to the negative 3. Well, the y is in a negative exponent, so it's moving to the bottom. So I'm going to have negative 9 x to the 17th over 16 y to the 3rd. This is your final answer. Okay. I think, yeah, we'll go ahead and do 25. It may make this a little bit of a longer video, but I think it would be good for y'all to have as many examples as possible with this. Okay, so first things first, we have multiplication, not a power raised to a power, but we're just multiplying. So we have 18 b to the 1, so that's 1 plus 5, so that's going to be b to the 6th, c to the 3 plus 2, so that's going to be 5, all over 5 times 2 is 10, b to the 5 plus 3 is 8, c to the 2 plus 6 is 8. So now we simplify. So I can divide by 2. So we end up with 9 fifths, and then we have b to the 6 minus 8, which is -2, c to the 5 minus 8, which is -3. So we end up with 9 over, because all of this is going to move to the bottom with the 5, because they are negative exponents. So we have 5b squared c cubed. I will leave the challenge problem for you to try. This will not be required to be done because it is a challenge problem. All right, y'all have a great day.